So what are we talking about today? You kick us off.
Great. So I have been really interested lately in talking, Amanda and I got to talk before this and just chat about what aligns with both of our work, and we have so much resonance between what the two of us work on. And since I work on or support women who are creators, women who want to break cycles, break generational patterns, I have been really interested in creativity as an outlet for healing. Like, we don't have to heal before we create, we heal as we create. And what usually gets in the way of creating for us are those conditioned patterns of what I mentioned before, the overgiving, people pleasing, keeping silent, being nice, all the things that women get conditioned with in our society. And I have this really great quote from Brene Brown that says, "Unused creativity is not benign. It metastasizes, it turns into grief, rage, judgment, sorrow, and shame." So I really believe it's important for women to create, and those patterns get in the way of our creativity. So I was really interested to hear from Amanda as a hypnotherapist about the subconscious and how we adopt those patterns, how they get passed down, and also your perspective on how to work on that. Obviously, I have my perspective, but I'd love to hear from your expertise.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's so interesting when you say that quote from Brene. I love her work, and the thing that really stuck out for me was shame. And so I'm sure you'd agree. So many of the women that I work with, they hold such a deep-rooted shame, and it's really heartbreaking sometimes to see. But again, as you say, it comes from that deep rooted and actually quite subtle conditioning that we have, and we all, women in general, we all have individual conditioning, whether it's from childhood, past experiences, and that's unique to us in our experiences. But there seems to be an underlining collective conditioning that we as women carry throughout our lives, and that is passed down generationally from the women who came before us, but equally within society or culturally, that conditioning is just subtly weaved throughout history, and then it comes into our lives. And I think what I see the most with the women that I'm working with is that so many of them aren't even aware. They're probably self-aware enough and understand their own holdbacks and what's affecting them, but they're not looking, or they haven't thought about that even deeper layer of how we're all interconnected in that way as women. And I actually find it quite interesting when we dig down and talk a little bit more about the fears that they have, especially the female founders that I work with. They are struggling a lot with being fully seen. I do work a lot with midlife women as well, and I think that period of our lives we're really starting to question things, and having that recalibration. And this underlying conditioning that we have as a collective is so key, not only to be aware of, but as you say, how we can begin unraveling it and unlearning a lot of it as well. And it disconnects us from ourselves in so many ways, because we're then unable to express ourselves authentically, and embrace our true selves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I, especially with what you were talking about with the female founders, that makes total sense. And I think the workplace is an area that we don't think about as much, about how these patterns take place. Because I was reflecting recently on my work life, and I've always been a go-getter. I've always been someone who was valuable to leadership. And a lot of it was because I was anticipating other people's needs and taking, like, caretaking. And there's part of me that really likes that part of myself because it makes me feel valuable. It makes me feel like I'm making a difference. But I've been really questioning those behaviors lately as I've been dealing with my own burnout or depletion. Like, I need to take care of myself too. So where's the line? And it is this, I think, a great gray area, subtle line of and balance of scanning our environments, making sure we're collaborating with people and working together closely with people, but also like caring for ourselves and not overdoing it when it comes to anticipating others' needs. Because I think women just naturally lean that way.
Yeah, I think we are the natural nurturers.
Yes.
I think, but I guess that's another, I think, expectation as well. As women, there's very clear expectations about, you know, what role we're playing, you know, within society. And even if we're pushing back against that, you know, and women that are very self-aware and, you know, well aware of the patriarchal systems that we're in, I think it's really important that yeah, we're just aware of the expectations that are always put on us, and not to always walk into those. You know, we have to have our eyes open. And yeah, I think we're going to talk a little bit later about motherhood and things like that. And yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and that I've seen a lot of content lately about the fear of being seen. And that is such a it's such a perfect time for us to be talking, because it's summer, which, you know, and I'm all about aligning with seasonal energy, and summer season is about like being in full bloom and being seen. So I think it's like a really good time for women to reflect on, what is it that's keeping me from being seen, whether it's that fear or self-silencing, or where we've been seen in the past and it didn't feel good, it made us feel vulnerable. So it's such rich territory for women to do their own healing work.
Yeah, I think it is that, and again, with the female founders, it seems to be coming up quite a bit, that fear of being seen, the visibility side. And I think we talked about before when we've chatted that, you know, running your own business, it's so confronting. You know, every part of yourself needs to be cracked open almost, you know, and it can feel incredibly uncomfortable. And I think it does come back to, yes, the individual conditioning that each of us have had within our lifetimes, but the collective conditioning of women that, you know, being agreeable, playing small, being quieter, pleasing others. Quite a few conversations that I've had with women recently is around not wanting to be perceived as too much. And and that term is very subjective, you know, how people perceive somebody else as too much. And I think that's such a key term that seems to have been coming up, you know, around visibility and not wanting to be perceived that way by others. And yeah, you're right. I think it is that fear of judgment and fear of rejection as well. Nobody wants to not belong. That's a real deep-rooted, you know, survival mechanism that we have. And you're just not being good enough. I think the fears beneath the fear that we can really kind of dig into with all of this. But again, the underlying conditioning that women have and that we carry, I think that's such a good term. Women carry that throughout their lives, and it's so subtle, and it's just weaved throughout society and cultures.
I just read something. I'm reading this book right now called The Heroine's Journey, which is excellent. It's by Maureen Murdoch. And she mentioned a research study where in the workplace, men were surveyed about conversations with women. And I think it was, if women were speaking 30% of the time, they felt like they were being like overbearing and dominating. And when women were speaking 25% of the time, the men marked it as like, oh, this was a balanced 50-50 conversation. So it's like, we are really set up to fail if we're afraid to be too much, and then we're perceived as too much, even when we're like a quarter of the time. That is, it's such a self-perpetuating issue for us. So I think it's so important to like excavate those parts of ourselves that feel like too much and heal that. But also, there's systemic societal issues that need to be made aware of and addressed as well. Like, it's internal and external.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about motherhood, because I used to work with moms exclusively, and the mom guilt was real. So there was a lot of shame there about all the expectations that moms have today. And although there's so much more awareness and conscious parenting, in some ways that's like a gift and a curse, because then they're so aware. And I think you might have mentioned this, like, you're so aware of what you could be doing to your kids, so you're worried a lot. And I think a lot of these behaviors that we're talking about, the overgiving, people pleasing, putting others before yourself, obviously that's part of motherhood. But then I think our society also like really glorifies that, and there's like social currency for women in that. And so it can be problematic if that's what they're being rewarded for, is these behaviors. And then Gabor Mate, I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He's a trauma expert. He talks about how these behaviors that we're mentioning, these personality traits, they also are linked really closely to chronic illness. So, and I think moms in particular are so susceptible to that. So I'd love to hear your experience both as a mother and as a hypnotherapist about these aspects and like how you think about parenting and the gift and the curse side of that for you.
Yeah. And yes, and it is. And I think, again, it comes back to those societal expectations of what your role as a mother looks like. And I think these days, more so than, you know, perhaps our parents or our parents sort of generations, it's very much you can have it all, be it all, do it all. And that is a lot of pressure because we're human beings at the end of the day. And for me and my personal experience running my own business, I am, in quote marks, the default parent. My partner isn't around, works long hours. So I'm not only running my own business, I'm the default parent to two still quite young school-age children. And I think looking back at how my parents parented, they were like the boomer generation. But my parents were quite liberal, but my mum did everything. You know, dad went out to work. It was sort of the classic situation. But I saw, as I got older, I didn't see it as a child, obviously, but as I got older and became an adult, I saw very much her self-sacrificing tendencies, and that did make her ill quite often. It's interesting, actually, thinking about it now, that she wouldn't rest. There wasn't that time or space, you know, and I think it wasn't necessarily that my dad was, you know, forcing her to continue, you know, and do what she would normally be doing. I think she felt in herself, this is my role, this is my job, I need to just push through, carry on. And a lot of the time it was to her own detriment. And she's passed away now, so it would have been wonderful to be able to have kind of discussed all of this with her, being a mum myself now. But so I think that's one thing that I've taken away, becoming a mum myself, in not putting too much pressure on myself. There's always a mum guilt. I think it's almost impossible to eradicate that, just purely because of all the, you know, societal expectations that are there as well. Again, the perceptions from other people, you know, and nobody's parenting the same way. Nobody's conditioned in the same way. Even other parents at the school that my children are at, you know, I'm so aware of sort of listening into conversations and thinking, you know, but it's not for me to kind of interject and say anything. But, you know, some women are more self-aware, others are just, you know, not. And I think that can be quite tricky when you're trying to parent children where other parents are in a completely different space and you know, have completely different roles at home and things like that. So for me, with my own children, because I'm so aware of all of this, everything we've been talking about, and obviously the impact that your own behavior as a mother can have on your children. So I've got an older son and a younger daughter. I'm very aware of the language that I use. I'm very aware of what I say to myself in front of them. Only the other day I had to pull myself up because something had happened, something minor, and I was like, "Oh, you idiot," that I'd said to myself, and I was like, but again, that's the self-deprecating, you know, and I shouldn't do it in front of them. But I think with my daughter especially, being so aware of the conditioning that goes on, and even her being at school and around other children, around other adults, I can see things coming in already that are not mentioned at home, that it is not part of our values at home, and that have started trickling in, which is quite interesting. So as a parent, that could be frustrating, because it's like there's only so much you can say or do, and then, you know, if she doesn't mention it, or if she does mention it, then we talk about it and question things. But only the other day she came in and said, oh, I do love myself, mummy. And I was like, of course you do. Yes, we do love ourselves. So it's really, for me, it's about building her up in, from this young age. She's almost 5, so she's still quite little, but being able to build up that sense of self-worth. And, it's so easy for somebody else just to come along and tear it down, or for those, societal expectations and conditioning to kind of weave their way in when I don't want it to. So I said to her, I want you to give me 3 things, just 3 things that you really love about yourself. And obviously she did it in 5-year-old language. But it was that I don't hurt other people. I was like, okay, so you're kind. And then that she's proud of herself because she loves herself. It's like, great. And then because she draws such lovely pictures. And I was like, so you're creative, and that's why you love yourself as well. But I think doing these types of things, a bit, again, you have to be aware of it as well. And I think being able to do those types of things with her at such a young age is so important. It's
yeah, that's so sweet that I mean, such a different generation for sure. And like you said, you can't protect her from the conditioning that happens outside your home. I've been doing a lot of research and self-education on, the patriarchal systems that we are raised in. And I used to be one of those women who got really annoyed when anyone mentioned the patriarchy, because for me, it was like, man hater club. But now I understand it on a deeper level, where it's a systemic belief system where the feminine is considered lower or less than the masculine. And the implications of that, I recently read a Substack post by her name is Celeste Davis. She's wonderful. She has a publication called Matriarchal Blessing. I really recommend it. But she wrote about the Epstein files and the root cause of violence against women. And part of it was, I mean, she had statistics from all over the world, and there's a correlation between gender inequality and violence against women. And that's the patriarchy, so, and we'll often internalize patriarchal beliefs first before we externalize them. So for young boys or male identifying children, they will downgrade the feminine aspects of their self, like being vulnerable, being emotional, being soft. Like they'll make that bad in themselves, and then they turn it externally. And same thing for women. We're seeing our environment where the feminine is considered less than, so we reject the feminine in ourselves and want to align ourselves with masculine qualities. And that's where like career starts to take place, where it's about achieving and doing and winning and things like that. So I think it's so important that you're aware of and consciously supporting your daughter, knowing that you can't protect her from the systemic conditioning that happens outside of your home. And I was curious with the difference between the UK and here with resourcing for moms. Do you guys have a lot of, like, whether it's government or kind of programs that support households and child's care, anything like that? Or is it sort of how it is here?
No, I think maternity wise, our rights are a little bit, more forward thinking than in the US, but, we get more leave and things like that. But no, I wouldn't say kind of new mother support, when you first had your baby, that is lacking. They do say that we're trying to move forward, but it's never enough. And there's never enough, time and resources going into anything like that, really. So no, I wouldn't say we're particularly forward. I think probably the Scandinavian countries within Europe are a little bit further along than the UK is, certainly on things like that. Childcare is still ridiculously expensive in the UK. It makes life very, very difficult to, work and have kids as a woman. And I think that's why a lot of the time my partner's out working much more, and I'm doing my business part-time, because then it's around the kids, and it's a continuous kind of juggle all the time. But no, I wouldn't say personally that I've found the support for being either a new mother or a mother of any age child is great in the UK.
Yeah, that's too bad. I have a friend
what other UK women say, but not
yeah. I have a friend who used to live in Finland, and I think she said that childcare in Finland is like $7 a week or something crazy like that.
Yeah, they've got it. I'm emigrating to the Nordics. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
They do. They're the happiest people on earth up there as well. So I think,
yeah. Even though it's really cold and dark,
yeah,
they're onto something.
Yeah, true. They've got something right. But ironically, I did see something. I think it was only today actually that so much of their governments are run by women. And I was like, well, that's not a coincidence then, is it? I think it was over 50% of those particular countries, Finland especially, I think it was, and then a few others. They were run by women, and I was like, well, that kind of says it all, doesn't it? So
yeah,
point.
Just another reason why I really believe women need to be creating out there. That makes a lot of sense.
Put us into the leadership roles, and we'll sort the world out, I think.
Yeah. I'm curious how you what your toolbox looks like when you're working with a client and you're helping her deal with some of these things, especially I think self-doubt for women. I was just talking to someone else yesterday from Substack, and she said she recently surveyed her clients, and self-trust was a hot button topic for them, like building self-trust. And that's definitely been my experience too in working with women. So how do you support your clients in dealing with that self-doubt or self-sacrificing? What kind of tools do you use?
Yeah, no, I agree that there's a lot of doubt in themselves and lack of self-trust 100%, and constantly questioning themselves and almost needing that external validation, other people to give them permission to make those choices or decisions for themselves. And, it's all completely valid and understandable why. But yes, I've certainly been seeing that as well. So I mean, toolkit wise, I think for me, being a hypnotherapist, it will be subconscious work in hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is the tool really as to how we tap into our subconscious mind. So that is first and foremost what I'd be using with clients. So initially I would have a much longer kind of 90-minute conversation with them just to find out a little bit more about what they're dealing with, really peeling back those layers and looking at the collective conditioning as well as their own individual conditioning as well. So that's one of the main things. And even within hypnosis, I'd then be looking at somatic practices as well, because as you know, we're not just holding things in our minds, we're holding it in our bodies as well. So it is really important to tap into the feelings and sensations that we're holding onto around those particular patterns or beliefs or fears that we're actually dealing with. I think we spoke last time actually, and you'd mentioned about inner child work, and I have been doing, I do that as well. And I think that's probably 90% of the clients that I work with, I will do inner child work with them. I think everybody needs some inner child work. It's such a vital part, I think, of being able to, and it's wonderful when you're in hypnosis, being able to meet that younger self and allow them to kind of evolve as the hypnosis goes on. A lot of the time people will meet them at very, very young age. I've even had people see themselves as like 1 or 2 year olds, and then they've evolved and gotten older throughout the session, and being able to give them what they need in that moment, what they weren't able to receive at the time. And that is very much to do with their individual conditioning. But equally, as we move through the session and the child gets older, it's unlearning some of the societal conditioning or generational conditioning that have that they've been carrying as well. So definitely that's super interesting. And probably parts therapy, that's another one that I've been doing quite a little bit. So being able to talk to a specific part, we've all got parts of ourselves, lots of different, but being able to talk to specific parts of ourselves, and it's normally that protective part that is holding back against something. And it's really interesting to see, and again, it's completely individualized to the person that you're working with, but seeing what's coming up for them, any whether it's a resistance, whether it's a form of protection, to see what's blocking them from, being able to make those positive changes that they're trying to make. So I'd say all of that is very varied depending on the client. Yeah,
super resonant with the work I do too. And I think everything that you're mentioning is about reconnecting with ourselves.
Yeah.
I think what trauma really is a wound that occurs when there's disconnection that happens. And Gabor Mate talks about this, how human beings have, other than our like basic human needs, we have a need for attachment to our caregivers, and then authenticity, which is to express our true feelings. And we'll often, as children, sacrifice authenticity in order to keep attachment. And our child brains are perceiving, you know, oh, my mom's not going to love me if I'm angry, so I need to shut that part of myself down. Even though that might not be true, but that's how our child brain is interpreting it. And so there's so many moments of disconnection. So I think with everything you were mentioning, whether it's reparenting yourself as your inner child at young age, or conversing with a part of yourself that got that disconnection in a moment in time, it's all reconnecting. And I think that really builds self-trust too, because it's like you're telling those parts of yourself, or those younger versions of you, you can trust me because I'm listening to you, and I will give you what you need. And I think that's the foundation of self-trust. So yeah, that's a really great toolkit.
Yeah. Amazing. Tell me about yours. I know that you've been doing all sorts.
Yeah, I mean, very similar. I don't do hypnotherapy or hypnosis. I would love to get into that, but there's like so many things I would love to get into.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a forever student, but I do a lot of somatic work as well. So in my training to be a trauma-informed coach, I focused on mindfulness, somatics, and breath work. I use tools like EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique. That's usually one of my clients' favorite because it's so simple and you can do it alone. And a lot of times, including myself, like I like to do it with a practitioner just because it's like I don't have to hold the reins. Like she can like lead me through it. So if I'm having a hard time with something, I'll set up a session to do EFT tapping with someone, and that's what I use with my clients as well. We might do like somatic experiencing where we're focusing on the feeling of the body. Maybe we're like integrating that feeling and, by pendulating, which is kind of moving from an area of charge to an area of safety within the body. I'll do inner child meditations where you might go back. We'll map out like what are the moments from childhood where you didn't get what you needed, and you go back and give yourself that. And then I also am a Reiki practitioner, which is more energy work. It's a Japanese form of energy healing. So I'll integrate that as well. We'll do some Reiki. And I mean, I have a lot of different tools I pull from, parts work as well, nervous system regulation, building your emotional capacity, things like that. I think a lot of my focus is on building your capacity to hold pain, because emotional pain registers in the brain as like the same as physical pain. And for survival, our brain wants to avoid it. So I think we all become really good at avoiding painful emotions.
Yeah.
But then if we're limiting that, we limit our capacity for pleasant emotions as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Our joy, So I think a big part is like being able to sit with pain. And that not only helps you in your emotional resilience, but it also helps you create a safe space for the people around you, because they get to feel without you having to like fix it, change it, invalidate them, because it's uncomfortable when we're in the presence of pain. And I think especially for moms, sitting with their kids' pain, because it registers as your pain.
100%,
building your capacity for that, I think, is so important. So that's a big focus of mine for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And I love that there's so much overlap as well. I know, the more women doing this type of work to make those positive changes, and I've written about it, helping one woman at a time and allowing that ripple effect to go out and affect others. And it's so important.
Absolutely. I think that, have you ever heard of David Hawkins' work?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I love his work. He wrote the book Power versus Force, and he developed the map of consciousness for anyone listening. But he talks about different energy levels and different emotional states, and the higher levels like joy and love are so much more powerful than the lower levels. So
Yeah.
even if you're just helping one woman,
Mm.
the power of that is so big. It has the capacity to change her environment.
Mm.
I mean, I really think that's the way we change the world. It's like one woman at a time.
Yeah, I think it has to be. Yeah. I've yeah, the last couple of months I've really been digging into that, and sometimes because of the way the world is at the moment, and it feels like it's just one thing after another coming up, and you know, the systems that we're living in and the types of things you're hearing about. I really did start to question, like, is it enough just helping one woman at a time? Am I making enough impact with the gifts and skills that I've got? You know, should I be, you know, doing more? But actually, when I really dug down, I think as you say, helping one woman at a time, that's how it has to be, and allowing those ripples to go out and touch others. Yeah.
I'm so glad you named that, because I think so many of us deal with that. Like, is what I'm doing enough? Whether you're a healer and coach, or you're a teacher, or you're a stay-at-home mom and you're raising kids, like it's always like this guilt of I'm not doing enough, circling back to
there it is.
Yes, and it's a good reminder that just doing what's in front of us and having that day-to-day positive interactions with another individual human is the way to move the needle. And it's slow, but that's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah, I think so. Slow and steady. Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like that's a good ending point for us. It was so great to get to talk to you, Amanda, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, feel free to comment on the post and we'll be happy to respond. And any final words?
No, just thank you. Let's continue collaborating, supporting each other. Yeah, absolutely loving Substack and the journey that I'm on, and being able to meet all of these incredible women, and as you say, coaches, healers, therapists. It's wonderful. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.